Hello, this is Jorangula, a computer science student at Metropolitan State University. For our cyber operations class, we will be talking about the history, the effects, and remedies of ransomware. But before we start, I just want to preface by saying this is for educational purposes only. When we think about ransomware, there are a few questions that come to mind. A few of those being, when did ransomware start? What are the causes of ransomware? What are the stages of ransomware? And what are the types of ransomware? In this first part, we will dive into these questions in an attempt of presenting the history of ransomware. Before we talk about the beginning of ransomware, let's answer the question, what is ransomware? Ransomware is a type of malicious software that is specifically designed to block access to a computer system or file until a sum of money is paid. So the idea of taking people's file or taking their computer hostage have been around for a long time. However, the very first case of ransomware attack was recorded in 1989. And that was the 8th Trojan. The attacker was requesting for a ransom of $189. So on the left side here, we just have a fun fact from the CNN that is stating that the first non-ransom attack occurred over 30 years ago. And that was in 1989, as stated earlier. So after this case, the ransom attack continued. However, this kind of slowed down in the early 20s. And that was due to the difficulties of collecting payments. However, this all changed by 2010. So with the creation of cryptocurrency, it facilitated the payment of the attackers to collect the payment. So on the other side, we have here the evolution, just showing from the 1989, from when the first case ever was recorded to 2021. So what are some of the causes of ransomware? You have the phishing emails and other social media engineering attacks. You have the operating systems and software vulnerabilities. You have credential theft, drive-by download, and this will be when you unintentionally download a malicious code on your computer or mobile device that leaves you open to cyber attacks. In addition to that, we have other malwares that can be infiltrated into your system that leaves your system vulnerable to cyber attacks. So there are a few stages to ransomware, and one of those being the reconnaissance, which is the scanning of the system. At this stage, the attacker will usually scan the system for any vulnerabilities or map out their plan on how they will be moving in the system. One of those stages as well is the activation. So this is when, after scanning, the attacker will begin the crypto ransomware, that is deploying any malicious software that was supposed to take your files or computer hostage. And then after that, we have the ransom note. This will be when, after attacking, after taking your files or computer hostage, they will send you a note to let you know that your file or computer has been held hostage and tell you what you need to do to get access back. And on this stage, or on this graph rather, we see that there are 6 stages of the ransomware attack. And these are from the reconnaissance to the payday. The payday being that day which you pay the attacker to be able to gain access back to your file that was held hostage or your computer system. So let's now talk about the types of ransomwares. You have the leakware or darkware, which is when the attacker will steal your information and threaten you to publish it if you do not pay the ransom. Next, we have the mobile ransomware, which is usually done through the drive-by download or malicious applications. Like we mentioned earlier, the drive-by download will be when you unintentionally download malicious applications on your computer, or in this case, on your mobile device, that later on leaves you vulnerable to cyber attacks. So the attackers will then use those loopholes to gain access to either your files in your device or take total control of your device and request for a ransom. Next, we have the wipers or destructive ransomware. This will be when the attacker threatens you to destroy the data if you do not pay the ransom. Let's mention though that in some cases, even though you pay the ransom, your information still get destroyed, or you do not gain access back to the files or your system. Then we have the scareware ransomware, which is when they try to scare the victim into paying a ransom, even though their files or computer might not have been compromised yet. So they just make you believe that they have been, and so try to get you to pay a ransom. On this chart, we see here that there are two main types of ransomware. You have the crypto ransomware and the locker ransomware. And both go down to encrypt the encrypted file in case of the crypto, or the lock your screen in the case of a locker. But all of those two cases will lead down to you paying a ransom before gaining access either to your files in the case of crypto ransomware, or getting access to your system in the case of local ransomware. Let's now talk about the ransomware effects. The first one we have here is the disruption to regular operations. Usually, when an organization is a subject of a ransom attack, one of the first things they will want to do is to slow down the operation in order to contain the attack from spreading into additional parts in the organization if it has not yet been spread throughout. Then we have other vulnerabilities. Usually, after a ransomware attack, the company or organization will not be able to patch all the holes, and those holes will leave the system vulnerable and allow easy access to additional malwares to infiltrate the system. Then we have the closure of a manufacturing control system. As previously mentioned, the disruption to regular operation is kind of needed in a sort um, to stop the spread of ransomware. And so when that's done, that usually will lead to into other things like the closure of the manufacturing control system. Then we also have the temporary or permanent loss of sensitive information. Like we mentioned in the previous slide, sometimes even after paying the ransom, you won't be able to gain access to your files or your system, and that is because the attackers at times are not even able themselves to redeem the files that they have held hostage. Then we have financial losses that occur for the restoration of the system and files, because obviously when you are held hostage, you have to pay a ransom to be able to gain control over the files and system. And we also have the supply chain issue, because when that happens, the things are not working the same way they are supposed to. And so when it comes to the supply chain, you have to pay more or do more in order to get things to working normally as they were supposed to. Then we also have the harm to organizations' reputation. Most of the times when people hear, or customers rather, hear that an organization has been subject to a ransomware attack, they no longer trust that organization to keep their data safe. And most of the time, they will go to their competitor with their information because they know that there it will be safer. And just the research here shows that 70% of customers do not trust their organization with their data, like we mentioned earlier, right? That is after a ransomware attack. And then we have an additional 25% of customers, like mentioned, that leave the organization to go to their competitors because they trust them to keep their document safer. This chart here is one of the effects that is not presented, but however, it's the mental impact. We see here the first week, you will still be thinking about what happened. You'll still be processing the information or processing whatever might have happened. And then in the first 2 months, you might start working full time to recover. And from there, it will take up to 3 years to be able to fully recover. And then one of the things is most of the businesses or organizations usually will close within 6 months of ransomware attack if they were not well prepared. Let's now talk about some of the remedies of ransomware. That is some of the practical steps that can be taken to prevent ransomware. In the cyberspace in general, we need to implement cybersecurity and data protection. And to prevent the ransomware attack specifically, we need to be sure that we do not click on verified links. An additional one would be not opening untrusted email attachment. Like we mentioned earlier, one of the ways or one of the causes of ransomware phishing attacks and clicking links or opening untrusted email attachment are some of the way that those phishing attacks usually present themselves. Then we have the download from unapproved site. Like we mentioned earlier, again, we have the drive-by download. If you are downloading from unapproved site, you might easily download malicious applications or softwares to your computer. Then we have the security awareness training. We need to train the employees into understanding the security of the organization. One of the things is teach them or train them not to share their password with anyone else. Then we have a security audit. That will be hiring experts that will come and verify the organization, verify the security of the organization. Coming to the end of the presentation, we have here the sources that were used in the research. And I hope you were able to learn something from this. Thank you.